Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 10. It's amazing to think that after this week, there's only 1 month left of school. We have a lot to do between now and then, not just in this class. I'm thinking about your other classes as well. And so I hope you take your vitamins, and I hope that you have lots of energy for this next month because it's going to be a big one for all of you. Okay, we are going to, this week, take a look at the fourth of our 8 diversity issues. And that issue is socioeconomic status and its relationship to design. I'm going to pull a quote from a piece called Class in America, Identities Blur as Economies Change by Seth Freed Wessler. Here's the quote. Social sciences frequently debate the meaning of class, devising their own categories based on income, employment, or education level. But the truth is that class may be too complicated to reduce to a few indicators, such as the size of your bank account or how many academic degrees you have, according to NBC News statistics polling expert Josh Clinton. Class is also a set of ideas and beliefs, said Clinton, a political science professor at Vanderbilt University. Class is perception. It is the way that we think about ourselves, about how we see ourselves in comparison to others, about where we came from and where we live, as much as it is the objective indicators. For example, our data suggests that regardless of actual income, people who make less money but feel happy are likely to think of themselves as a member of a higher class than someone who makes more money but feels generally dissatisfied. Our sense of class is connected to our gender and race, to where we live, and to who our neighbors are. It's affected by how healthy we are and even how much we pray. Class is about many facets of our dynamic lives, and we're constantly piecing together a narrative about it through shards of subjective information. End quote. So there seems to be a sort of code around socioeconomic status, and there are cues, they're often quite subtle, that indicates one's place. That's even a funny way of thinking about ourselves in relation to the world, our place. So is it about social and or economic position, income, education, the language that we use or the way that we use language, prestige, privilege, power and control, our cultures, our various cultures, taste and lifestyle, regardless of our income, our race, religion, or ethnicity, our job, our self-image and attitude about the world? What else might class be about? One way socioeconomic status reveals itself is through design, specifically through which designed worlds we choose. And I'm going to underline that or repeat that again. One way socioeconomic status reveals itself is through design, specifically through which designed worlds we choose. Is it true that our choices in life reveal our class to others? What about the clothes we wear or the type of transportation we use? What about where we live? These all indicate something, or they might indicate something about our social class. Are those choices only about things? Who decides what's in good taste or not? And what is meant by the term status symbol? If you can afford to purchase an expensive item, say a pricey bicycle or car, are you automatically elevated in class? What items or physical characteristics do you think label the wearer or owner as low class? Does what you eat indicate your class? Do the sports you play indicate your class? Does where you go to school indicate your socioeconomic status? Is there a class structure at UB? I tend to think that it certainly is. And if so, what is that class structure at UB? Another issue to think about is, how is class indication changing? When I was a university student back in the 70s, donning tattoos would have been an indicator of a specific socioeconomic class. Not so anymore. What else has changed since that time that starts to blur the boundaries between socioeconomic status? The materials for this week start with one of the more complex versions of socioeconomic class. It's a description of the 12 socioeconomic levels as described by sociologist Donna Beagle. Her categorization gives us a way of framing the socioeconomic spectrum, which allows us to discuss the topic in relation to design. Then we will move on to a wonderful podcast titled A Better Life, Creating the American Dream. The American dream has roots in our nation's loftiest ideals, the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. So then, when did it come to mean a house, a car, and a college education? In this audio documentary, American Radio Works investigates the history of the American dream and how it is changing. Next, we will read a short but potent article by Eric Jaffe on the hidden ways urban design segregates the poor, which in this article describes design moves that set up both temporal and physical barriers to certain people. And then finally, we will read and listen to a great episode from a podcast series, which is called The Other 99%. And there are a lot of episodes about design in this podcast, so it's really good. And this particular episode expands on the concept of hostile urban architecture and how it affects all of us. At this point in time, I think most people tend to understand what that is. And so the way that hostile urban architecture is starting to reveal itself is getting a bit more subtle. Then, of course, you'll take the quiz and participate in your weekly discussion group. And this week, rather than responding to a question per se, we're asking you to develop a group catalog in your discussion groups. At some point this week, I'd also like you to look in the supplemental materials folder. There are some really interesting pieces in there that you might want to download. There's just a wonderful short video featuring the work of the well-known social photographer Milton Rogovin, who until his death in 2011 lived in Buffalo. And he's a fascinating social photographer. He developed several longitudinal studies of people who lived on the West Side in Buffalo. Rogovin photographed these people every 10 years for several decades, and in the process, revealed the changes in their lives. So if you look at this video, or if you look him up online, you'll see these triptychs that are really telling about what has happened to a family or a group of people. Next, we're going to offer in the supplementals 3 short episodes from the award-winning documentary titled People Like Us, Social Class in America. Now, this series was done in 2001, so I suppose it's history for you, but it is still really relevant in the way that it's set up. And given that we've been talking about stereotyping in the last few weeks, I think it would be interesting for you to take a look at these videos and ask yourselves a few questions about stereotyping as you're looking at them. So these videos are really short little clips that I've pulled, and they show you diverse ways that social status reveals itself from the poorest of the poor to the very wealthiest. I find all of these episodes to be strangely heart-wrenching, in that there seems to be a disconnect between those interviewed and the larger world. So that we've also posted the Opportunity Atlas. This is an amazing resource that allows you to interactively explore data on children's outcomes into adulthood for every census tract in the United States. If you ever do any research on children, this would be a phenomenal piece for you, but it also is just so interesting. This can inform local efforts to build equitable, prosperous, and healthier communities too, if you take a look at this information and use it towards certain kinds of design efforts. Accompanying this, and I've got this kind of smattered throughout the week this week, is a podcast with a transcript titled, "Does Your Zip Code Determine Your Destiny?" which is an interview with the creators of the Opportunity Atlas. And so you'll get a deeper sense of what this is all about. And yes, indeed, your zip code does determine a lot about what happens to you. And that's not stereotyping. People make decisions based on your zip code. So it's something to really look into. And then finally, take a peek at the something interesting category. And in that particular case, if you go to the bottom and then type in your zip code, you'll get a description of the types of groups who live in your neighborhood. Of course, social status and where one lives are often connected. So the weather forecast, I love Doppler radar and I like to watch the weather. So the weather is going to be beautiful this week in Buffalo. And if you are here, we suggest that you go out and explore Buffalo from Eric Jaffe's point of view or Stephen Flusty's point of view. What design features do you see in our environment that might segregate the poor? In other words, which design features act as social barriers? We are asking you to report your findings in our discussion thread this week. The big issue here is that the ways that we design often disadvantage certain groups, whether we are aware of it or not. If we're making decisions, we have to think about who's going to be advantaged and who's going to be disadvantaged by those decisions. And we're making those sorts of decisions every day of our lives. And sometimes the consequences are very small, but sometimes they're very large. As a group here, all of us as students of diversity and design, we want to open our eyes to these details so that we're aware of when and where they are present in our designed environments. Okay, that's it for the week. For our introduction, stay safe, stay curious, stay healthy, and stay kind. Thank you. Bye-bye.